The boy WHO changed his destiny. Summer, 2015, Brookhaven, Texas. 6-year-old Ethan Carter sat on the front porch of his family's small house, watching the golden sunlight stretch across the empty road. Life in Brookhaven was simple. Most people knew each other, and nothing exciting ever seemed to happen. Ethan's father, Michael Carter, worked long hours at a local auto repair shop. His mother, Sarah Carter, spent her days serving customers at a roadside diner. Money was always tight, but their home was filled with love. Unlike most children his age, Ethan was endlessly curious. He loved exploring places that others ignored. Old barns, abandoned sheds, and forgotten corners of the town always caught his attention. One hot afternoon, while riding his bicycle near a large oak tree at the edge of town, Ethan noticed something unusual sticking out of the dirt. It looked like a small wooden box. Curious, he parked his bike and knelt beside it. The box was dusty and worn, as if it had been buried for years. After brushing away the dirt, he carefully lifted it out of the ground. The lock had rusted away long ago. When Ethan opened the lid, he found several old photographs, a small brass key, and a folded letter with faded handwriting. He unfolded the letter and stared at the words. Most of it didn't make sense to him, but one sentence stood out clearly. "If you found this, your journey has just begun." A strange feeling ran through his body. For a moment, the world around him seemed unusually quiet. Then a shadow appeared beside him. Ethan looked up and saw an elderly man standing a few feet away. The man wore a faded brown hat and carried a wooden walking stick. His eyes immediately locked onto the box. The old man remained silent for several seconds before speaking. "Where did you find that?" Ethan pointed toward the hole beneath the oak tree. The man's expression changed instantly. He looked shocked, almost frightened. Then he took a deep breath and slowly sat down on a nearby tree stump. "I never thought anyone would find it," he whispered. Ethan held the box tightly. "What is it?" he asked. The old man stared at the photographs for a long moment. Finally, he looked directly into Ethan's eyes. "It's the beginning of a story that was never supposed to be forgotten." The words hung in the air. Ethan stared at the old man, waiting for him to explain. "What story?" he asked. The old man glanced around as if he wanted to make sure nobody else was listening. Then he pointed at one of the photographs inside the box. The picture showed 3 young men standing in front of an old wooden building. They were smiling proudly at the camera. Ethan looked closer. "Who are they?" The old man gently took the photograph into his hands. "One of them was my brother." Ethan noticed sadness in his voice. The old man continued. "More than 30 years ago, something happened in this town. Most people forgot about it. Some people wanted it to be forgotten." A warm wind moved through the branches above them. The old man opened the folded letter and looked at the faded handwriting. "Back then, there was a hidden place outside Brookhaven. Very few people knew about it." "A treasure?" Ethan asked excitedly. The old man smiled slightly. "No, something much more important." Before Ethan could ask another question, a loud engine roared in the distance. Both of them turned toward the road. A black pickup truck was slowly approaching the oak tree. The old man's smile disappeared immediately. His face turned pale. He stood up faster than Ethan thought possible for someone his age. "We have to leave," he said. "Why?" "They can't see that box." The truck continued moving closer. Ethan felt his heart beating harder. He didn't know who was inside the vehicle. But judging by the fear in the old man's eyes, whoever was coming was not someone they wanted to meet. Without another word, the old man grabbed his walking stick and started moving toward the woods behind the oak tree. After a moment of hesitation, Ethan picked up the box and followed him. The forest was darker than Ethan expected. Dry leaves crunched beneath his feet as he hurried after the old man. The deeper they went, the quieter everything became. Even the sound of the road disappeared behind them. Ethan tightened his grip on the wooden box. "Who was in that truck?" he asked. The old man kept walking. People who asked too many questions. That answer only made Ethan more curious. After several minutes, they arrived at a small clearing hidden between tall trees. In the middle stood an old wooden cabin that looked abandoned. The windows were covered with dust. The paint had almost completely faded away. The old man pushed open the door. To Ethan's surprise, the inside was much cleaner than the outside. Someone had clearly been taking care of the place. The old man closed the door behind them and finally sat down. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. Then he pointed toward the brass key inside the box. "Do you know why that key is important?" Ethan shook his head. The old man smiled. "Because it opens something that has been locked for more than 30 years. Ethan's eyes widened. "What does it open?" The old man looked toward a bookshelf standing against the wall. Slowly, he stood up and walked over to it. With both hands, he pulled the shelf aside. Ethan couldn't believe what he was seeing. Behind the bookshelf was a hidden metal door. A lock sat in the center, the exact same size as the brass key. For a moment, nobody moved. The old man turned toward Ethan. "I've waited a very long time for this day." Ethan looked down at the key resting in his hand. His heart pounded with excitement. Carefully, he walked toward the hidden door. The old man stepped aside. With slightly trembling fingers, Ethan lifted the brass key and slowly inserted it into the lock. "The most dangerous man this town has ever known." Ethan stared at the old man, unsure whether he was serious. "How can someone who disappeared be dangerous?" he asked. The old man carefully took the newspaper clipping and placed it back on the table. "Because some people don't disappear," he said quietly. "They simply learn how to stay hidden." A chill ran down Ethan's spine. The underground room suddenly felt much colder. The old man walked toward another shelf and pulled out a thick leather journal. The cover was cracked with age. "This belonged to my brother." He slowly opened it. Most of the pages were filled with notes, sketches, and maps. But near the middle, Ethan noticed several pages covered in red ink. The handwriting looked rushed, almost panicked. The old man began reading aloud. "If anything happens to us, the truth must remain hidden until the right person finds the box." Ethan listened carefully. The key, the documents, and the map must never fall into his hands. The old man stopped reading. "Whose? His?" Ethan asked. Before the old man could answer, a sudden noise echoed from above. Thump. Both of them froze. A second noise followed. Thump. This time it sounded heavier. Like footsteps. Someone was inside the cabin. The old man immediately switched off the flashlight. The underground room fell into darkness. Ethan could hear his own heartbeat. The footsteps continued. Slow. Deliberate. Moving across the floor above them. Then came the sound of a door opening. The old man's eyes widened. Nobody else knew about this place. Or at least, nobody was supposed to know. The footsteps stopped directly above the hidden room. For several terrifying seconds, there was complete silence. Then a voice echoed through the cabin. A deep voice. A voice neither of them recognized. "I know you're down there." Ethan felt every muscle in his body tense. The old man slowly reached into a nearby drawer. Inside was an old photograph. On the back, a single sentence had been written decades earlier. If they ever find the cabin, it's already too late. And somehow, he had become part of it. The wind blew across the top of the water tower as Ethan continued staring at the map. The red X seemed ordinary. Yet everyone appeared willing to risk everything to find it. "What's buried there?" Ethan asked. The old man folded the map carefully. "I don't know." Ethan looked surprised. "You don't know?" The old man shook his head. "My brother never told me. He only said that if the truth ever came out, it would change everything." The sun was beginning to disappear behind the horizon. Darkness slowly spread across Brookhaven. The old man checked his watch. "We should leave before it gets too late." As they climbed down from the tower, Ethan suddenly noticed something. Fresh tire tracks. Right below the structure. His heart skipped a beat. They hadn't been there before. The old man noticed them too. Neither of them spoke. The tracks were still fresh. Someone had been watching them. Recently. Very recently. The old man quickly folded the map and slipped it into his jacket. "Let's move." They left the water tower and headed toward town using a narrow path through the trees. The sky had turned dark by the time they reached the outskirts of Brookhaven. Streetlights flickered on one by one. Everything looked normal, but Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that someone was following them. As they passed an old convenience store, a newspaper box caught Ethan's eye. A photograph on the front page looked strangely familiar. He stopped walking. The old man turned back. "What is it?" Ethan pointed at the newspaper. The old man's face instantly lost all color. The newspaper was old, very old, years old, but the photograph on the front page showed the same man whose face had been scratched out in every picture inside the journal. And beneath the photograph was a headline: "Local businessman returns after 31 years." Ethan read the headline twice. Then a third time. His hands started shaking. "That's impossible." The old man slowly picked up the newspaper. His eyes remained fixed on the photograph. For more than 30 years, everyone believed the man had disappeared. But according to the newspaper, he had come back. And if the newspaper was telling the truth, it meant something even more terrifying. The man hunting them wasn't searching for the secret. He already knew the secret. If they ever find the cabin, it's already too late. The old man stared at the message for a moment. Then he folded the photograph and slipped it into his pocket. Above them, the stranger remained silent, waiting, listening. Ethan could barely breathe. "Who is he?" he whispered. The old man shook his head. "I don't know." For the first time since they had met, Ethan saw genuine fear in his eyes. A loud crash suddenly echoed through the cabin. The stranger had knocked something over. Then came another crash, and another. Whoever was upstairs was searching for something. The box, the key, the documents. The old man quickly grabbed several journals and stuffed them into a canvas bag. "We have to leave." Through the stairs. "No." He pointed toward the far end of the underground room. Hidden behind a stack of wooden crates was a narrow tunnel. Ethan hadn't noticed it before. The old man rushed toward it. "Hurry!" Another loud bang came from above. This time the sound was followed by splintering wood. The stranger was getting closer. Ethan followed the old man into the tunnel. It was narrow and dark. The walls were made of packed earth. They moved as quickly as they could. Several minutes passed. The tunnel seemed endless. Finally, a faint light appeared ahead. The old man pushed open a rusted metal hatch. Fresh air rushed in. They emerged in the middle of an overgrown field nearly half a mile from the cabin. For the first time, Ethan felt safe. But that feeling lasted only a few seconds. Across the field, parked beside a dirt road, stood the same black pickup truck they had seen earlier. And leaning against the driver's door was a tall man wearing a dark jacket. He wasn't looking at the road. He wasn't looking at the truck. He was looking directly at them. As if he had known exactly where they would come out. As if he had known exactly where they would come out. The old man stopped walking. Ethan stopped beside him. Neither of them said a word. The tall man remained leaning against the black pickup truck, calmly watching them from across the field. Then, slowly, he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that made Ethan feel uncomfortable immediately. "Run," the old man whispered. Ethan didn't hesitate. They turned and sprinted across the field. Behind them, a car door slammed shut. The man was coming after them. The grass whipped against Ethan's legs as he ran as fast as he could. His lungs burned. His heart pounded, but he refused to let go of the wooden box. Ahead of them stood an abandoned railroad track that cut through the countryside. The old man pointed toward it. "This way." They crossed the tracks and disappeared into a patch of dense trees. For several minutes, all Ethan could hear was the sound of their footsteps. Eventually, they stopped beside an old water tower. The old man bent over, trying to catch his breath. Ethan looked back. There was no sign of the man. No sign of the truck. Nothing. "Did we lose him?" Ethan asked. "I hope so." But the old man didn't sound convinced. As the sun began to set, they climbed the stairs of the old water tower. From the top, they could see most of Brookhaven. The town looked peaceful, normal, as if nothing strange had happened. The old man opened one of the journals from the canvas bag. Several loose papers slipped out. One of them caught Ethan's attention immediately. It was a map, a hand-drawn map. Across the top, someone had written 2 words in red ink. "Final location." Ethan moved closer. The map showed forests, roads, and landmarks around Brookhaven. At the center of the map was a large red X. Beside it, another message had been written. "The truth is buried here." The old man stared at the map in silence. Then he looked toward the distant horizon. The people who made this map never got the chance to finish what they started. Ethan looked down at the red X. For the first time, he realized this wasn't just a mystery anymore. It was a mission, and somehow, he had become part of it. He already knew the secret. For several moments, neither Ethan nor the old man spoke. Cars passed on the road. People walked by. Nobody seemed to realize how dangerous that newspaper headline truly was. The old man folded the newspaper and tucked it under his arm. "We need answers. Where do we find them?" Ethan asked. The old man looked down at the map. At the red X. They spent the next hour moving through the quiet streets of Brookhaven, avoiding crowded places and staying out of sight. Eventually, they reached the old man's cabin again. The front door had been forced open. Furniture was overturned. Drawers had been emptied onto the floor. Someone had searched every corner of the building. But they didn't stay long. The old man grabbed a flashlight, a compass, and a small metal box hidden beneath the loose floorboard. Then they left. The journey toward the red X began before sunrise. The next morning, they followed the map deep into a remote forest north of town. The farther they traveled, the rougher the terrain became. Several hours later, they arrived at a steep hillside covered with rocks and thick trees. The old man stopped. He checked the map, then checked it again. "We're here." Ethan looked around. There was nothing unusual, just trees, rocks, and silence. Then he noticed something sticking out from the ground near a large boulder. A rusted metal marker, almost completely hidden by dirt. The old man rushed toward it. Carved into the marker were 3 initials. The same initials that appeared throughout the journals. This was the place. Their hands trembled as they began digging. Minutes turned into an hour. Then suddenly, clang! Ethan's shovel struck something solid. Both of them froze. Carefully, they cleared away the remaining dirt. A large metal chest slowly emerged from the ground. Its surface was covered in rust. But it was still locked. The old man pulled the brass key from his pocket. The same key Ethan had found inside the wooden box. For a moment, neither of them moved. More than 30 years of secrets rested inside that chest. The old man took a deep breath. Then he inserted the key into the lock. Just as he was about to turn it, a voice echoed through the forest behind them. "Don't open it." Ethan's heart nearly stopped. They turned around. Standing between the trees was the man from the newspaper photograph. He hadn't aged much. His dark eyes remained fixed on the chest. And in his hand was a revolver. And then a bright red laser sight appeared on the stranger's chest. For a split second, nobody moved. Even the man with the revolver froze. Another laser appeared. Then another. From different directions in the forest. The stranger slowly lowered his weapon. "They found us," he muttered. Ethan's breathing became shallow. The old man grabbed Ethan's arm and pulled him slightly backward, shielding him. From the trees, shadowy figures began to emerge. Not rushing, not shouting, just walking forward with controlled, silent steps. All of them wore dark tactical clothing. No badges, no identification, only one thing visible on their chests, small metallic devices emitting the red laser beams. The lead figure stepped into the clearing. He looked at the chest first, then at the key, finally at everyone present. "The containment breach has escalated further than expected," he said calmly. The stranger with the revolver turned slightly. "You told me this would stay buried." The lead figure didn't look at him. "It was buried," he replied, "until you brought them here." Ethan felt his mind spinning. Containment breach. What did any of this even mean? The old man tightened his grip. "Who are you people?" he demanded. The lead figure finally looked at him. "We are the ones who make sure certain truths never leave the ground." He took one step closer. "That chest does not belong to you." The stranger laughed bitterly. "It belongs to all of us." A tense silence followed. Then the lead figure raised his hand slightly. 2 of the masked agents moved forward toward the chest. The old man stepped in front of it immediately. "No." The agents stopped. The forest grew even quieter. Ethan could hear his own heartbeat again. The lead figure stared at the old man for a long moment. Then he spoke softly. "You don't understand what happens if that chest is opened." The old man answered without hesitation. I've waited 30 years to understand. The stranger suddenly raised his voice. Open it. Everything happened at once. A shot rang out. Birds flew out of the trees in panic. Ethan dropped to the ground. The old man turned sharply. The chest lock clicked at the exact same moment. The brass key had been turned. The chest opened, and in his hand was a revolver. The forest fell silent. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. Ethan's eyes locked onto the weapon. The old man slowly stepped in front of him. The stranger took a few calm steps forward. For a man who had supposedly disappeared for 31 years, he looked remarkably composed. Almost as if he had been preparing for this moment all along. Step away from the chest, he said. The old man didn't move. You ruined a lot of lives. The stranger sighed. No, I protected a lot of people. Ethan looked back and forth between them. Nothing made sense anymore. The journals described this man as dangerous. Yet he sounded completely confident that he was telling the truth. The stranger pointed toward the chest. Do you even know what's inside it? The old man remained silent. Exactly, the stranger continued. You've spent decades chasing answers without knowing the full story. A cold wind swept through the trees. The stranger lowered the revolver slightly. I never wanted any of this to happen. Then why did you disappear? The old man asked. The stranger's expression darkened. Because the people behind this secret were far more powerful than you can imagine. For the first time, Ethan noticed genuine fear in the man's eyes. Not fear of them. Fear of something else. Something bigger. The stranger reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a faded photograph. He tossed it onto the ground. The old man picked it up. His face immediately changed. Ethan looked over his shoulder. The photograph showed several people standing together in front of a government building. Among them was the stranger. But there were others too. Men and women whose faces had been circled in red ink. Across the back of the photograph, someone had written, "Trust none of them." The old man's hands trembled. Who are these people? The stranger glanced around the forest before answering. The reason your brother disappeared. Ethan's heart pounded. You mean he didn't die? The stranger looked directly at him. No. The old man froze. For more than 30 years, he had believed his brother was dead. Now everything he thought he knew was being turned upside down. The stranger slowly looked toward the chest again. You deserve the truth. Then his expression suddenly changed. His eyes shifted toward the trees behind Ethan. The smile vanished from his face. Instantly, as if he had seen something terrifying. Without warning, he raised the revolver, not at Ethan, not at the old man, but at something hidden in the forest behind them. And then a bright red laser sight appeared on the stranger's chest. The reset is not complete. The voice echoed inside their minds like a fracture in reality itself. Ethan held his head in pain. The glowing brass key in his hand grew brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat. The old man stepped closer, staring at it. This is not just a key, he whispered. It never was. The stranger looked around the empty forest. No system can fully erase an anchored object, he said slowly. That's why the chest kept coming back, even after the wipe. Ethan's voice trembled. Then what is it? The old man finally spoke the truth he had been running from. It's a backup. A silence fell. Not a normal silence, but something heavier. Like the world itself was listening. The old man continued. Decades ago, a group created Project Black Hollow. They discovered something they should never have touched. He looked at Ethan. Something that doesn't belong to this world's memory. The stranger nodded slightly, and when they couldn't control it, they built a failsafe. He pointed at the glowing key. That key doesn't open the chest. A pause. It restores what was erased. Ethan's eyes widened. So the chest was only a container, the old man said. The real thing is what it was protecting. The ground beneath them began to tremble slightly. Faint outlines of the forest started flickering, like reality was unstable. The voice returned again, softer this time. Final restore initiated. The stranger suddenly grabbed Ethan's hand. If this completes, everything resets, not just the forest, but the entire timeline around it. Ethan looked at the glowing key. For the first time, he understood the weight of it. Not treasure, not danger, but existence itself. The old man knelt down beside him. You found it, Ethan. That means the choice is yours now. The forest around them began dissolving into light again. Slowly, like being erased a second time. Ethan closed his eyes. He thought about everything. The box, the truth, the people who disappeared, the lies, the fear. Then he opened his eyes again, and made his decision. He raised the glowing key toward the fading sky, and spoke one word, no. The key shattered into light. A massive wave of energy exploded outward, not destroying, but restoring. The forest stabilized. The flickering stopped. Silence returned. When everything cleared, the chest was gone forever. The soldiers were gone. Even the stranger was gone. Only Ethan and the old man remained standing in a normal, quiet forest. Sunlight broke through the trees. Real sunlight. The old man looked at Ethan with tired eyes. You didn't just stop it. He paused. You chose what this world should remember. Ethan looked around slowly. For the first time, everything felt real and peaceful. The old man smiled faintly. Some secrets don't need to exist to be true. He turned and walked away into the trees. Ethan stood alone for a moment. Then he looked at the empty forest and whispered, "It's over." And this time, it truly was.